Hey everyone, Mario here. Just wanted to hop in before the episode starts and give you a little bit of a content warning. This week we're talking all about deaths at Walt Disney World, and that's a little bit of a sensitive and morbid topic. So please be advised if you're listening with younger ears.
Give me a little intro there, Gomer.
There's no turning back now.
Let's put on the show.
You're listening to episode number 103 of the Station 71 podcast. My name is Mario, and this week I'm joined by my co-hosts,
Beth?
Brian?
And Kirsten.
So we've got a very spooky Halloween-esque episode this week. I'm excited about this. This one's been something we've been talking about for a while, but we've got a lot of stuff to get through before we get there. So let's take some time to dive into the news topics this week. First thing that we have on our list here is that there was a slight increase in everyone's favorite ear souvenirs. It looks like both the Parks and the Shop Disney app have seen a $2 increase on the mini ear headbands. They are now at a price of $29.99 if you plan on picking them up on your Disney vacation.
I mean, is anyone surprised?
No. Now, let me ask you guys, do you think $30 is too much for ear headbands?
I wouldn't pay it, probably.
For all
Maybe
of
like
the cool, yeah, for all the customized ones you can get on Etsy now that are so cool and like the 3D printed ears and all that, no, definitely not. Because you could pay $30 and get something handmade that's like different than anybody else is going to have.
Yeah, that's the thing that like caught me off guard was like, this is almost comparable to Etsy prices. And I feel like you can get something a little bit cooler from there.
Yeah, and it's another thing where I just feel like I should support small shops because, like, I feel like Disney finally took notice of this whole community and they're now, like, kind of ripping them off in some ways, which, I mean, I'm glad Disney's doing it because they've needed to for a long time, but also I would rather pay, like, the small business owner who is doing it because they're, like, passionate about it than pay Bob Iger's bonus, you know?
Yeah, and there's kind of like a quality control to Disney having like kind of a hand in this market if they're ripping them off and they're doing a lot of this stuff that the creators that aren't putting a lot of effort out there are doing. I mean, one, you're going to get a higher quality product from Disney, hopefully, but two, it's kind of thinning that market out a little bit, which might be helpful because that is a very saturated market right now.
Yeah. But also on the quality, like, I feel like for ears, something that I'm going to wear like once a year, maybe, like, as long as they are like fine and they don't totally fall apart, like, I'm good with it. You know, they look good on my Instagram. They travel to the parks without breaking. Like, okay, cool. You know, I don't need like couture level mini ears. But this did make me think about, does anybody want an update on my quest to get my $45 back from the terrible
Still haven't got that
contract?
wrapped up.
Absolutely need to hear the end
What
of this
was the
story.
last update? Have I updated since I first talked about it?
On the air, no, you haven't updated. So
Okay.
you've kind of told us a little bit of this if you want to touch base
I
on
don't
it.
even remember how long ago that was, but basically they said, okay, well, we'll have a solution for you tonight. And that night they were like, okay, we're going to mail them out first thing tomorrow, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, I didn't hear anything. And as per usual, I forgot for like a week. And then I was like, hey, haven't heard anything from you, you know, and I hit him up a couple different times, still didn't hear anything. And so then I go through these like stages where I remember something and then I'm like fired up. And so I like thought about it, you know, like a month later after the whole first conversation, I was like, dang. And I just got really fired up. So I just started like blasting them again. Right. And then it showed that they had seen it. And so I was like, And they didn't answer. And I'm like, really? Like, you're really going to, I can see. And I replied, I was like, I know you saw this. Like, I can see that you saw this, like, I'm not messing around with you. And so I was like, I will sue you. Like, I have a demand letter. I will take you to small claims. I don't even care how much it costs. It's the principle. Like, you're stealing from people. I'm not the only person this has happened to. I'm not going to let you get away with it because, like, I'm just mad. And then they're like, whoa, hang on. I'm just trying to read above about what's even going on. Like, I don't know anything about this. And I'm like, bullshit. Like, yes, you do. Are you kidding me? If you don't know anything, it's because so many people have been complaining that you just can't keep track. Like, but you don't just forget. I mean, really? And
this is like months later too, right? Like this
was about a month after they
okay.
first said that they were going to give me my money back, or they were going to send my shirts back. Like a month after I talked about it on the air, I think. So it hadn't been long enough that they would totally forget, unless this is happening to like all kinds of people. And so then they were like, I guess that really scared them. And so they were like, send me your invoice number again. And I'm like, I already sent you this, like, read up in the conversation, jerk, and it's another thing where like, oh, I'll have to talk to my people. And I'm like, no, you don't. It's you. Okay. We all know it. Just admit it. There's nothing to be ashamed of. Small shops are like usually run by one person. Like, it's cool. I get that. Anyway. And so I guess that scared them. And so the next day I was like, I haven't heard anything. And they were like, what's your email, for PayPal, whatever. And I sent it to them. And then the next day they sent me my $45 back on PayPal. They didn't even offer to do the shirts again, which I'm still mad because I really like that shirt and I really wanted it. But oh well, at least I got my money back. So I did successfully get my money back. So don't give up. What's the saying? Never, never, never give up. Like, I was not gonna I realize that it's petty and it's not that much money, but it's the principle. Like, you can't just do that to people,
Yeah.
So
Yeah, for
well,
sure.
I'm glad you got your money back. I'm glad that we finally got some resolution on that.
If anybody needs help getting their money back for anything, contact us. I will assist you for a small, small fee. So yeah, the end. But still, if they come back, I highly recommend against anybody buying from them. What were they? They're hang on, I have to get the name so that I can blast them again.
2319 threads.
Yes, 2319 threads.
Yeah, I remembered that because I remember you blasting them.
Yeah, don't buy anything from them if they come back. The end.
So I guess it's safe to move on to our next news topic then, which is another one that's kind of in the same vein of Are We Surprised? Docking Bay 7 has removed the unique themed names from their menu items, which includes both the food and beverage options. Previously, the items on the menu were named to be kind of like in Star Wars universe. Now they've changed to basically what they are. So instead of ordering, I think the one thing that was on there that everybody was talking about was the tip yip. There's now beef pot roast. Like, it's not Star Wars themed on their menu anymore.
Boring.
It's no fun. Like, why?
Because people are stupid and we can't have nice things.
So I have
Mad about it.
Two things I want to say about this. There's one, which is like, I feel like Disney needed to commit all in on Star Wars for Galaxy's Edge and the hotel that they're building to be what they wanted it to be, and this is just them backing down, which Disney never should have done in the first place. They should have, if they wanted it to be fully immersive and fully like just blow the Star Wars fans' minds, they needed it to be unapologetically Star Wars. And this is them saying, oh, we did that thing and probably confused a lot of people, so yeah, we're backing down. But on the opposite end of that spectrum, like, I can kind of see it being confusing to guests. The only thing is, these descriptions that they're now listed as were under the items already. So if you looked at the menu and you didn't know what it was, you could just look right under it and see.
You have two brain cells to rub together. You should be able to figure it out.
Well, I mean, like, some of them were I mean, I wouldn't know what it was unless I looked under it and actually read what it was. But like,
I mean, most people wouldn't, but that's not the point.
yeah, and that's what I mean. Like, Disney should have committed and been unapologetically all in on Star Wars. Not saying that Galaxy's Edge is a failure, because I know that that's the big narrative that has been pushed around a lot. I don't think that. I just think that for everything to hit off as much as they wanted it to, it should have been that way.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to play devil's advocate. I agree with a lot of that for sure. The only thing that I'm going to say is that would all be well and good for me at a table service restaurant, but at a quick service, like, I want to get in, get my food, and get out as quickly as possible. And if the 50 people in front of me are taking longer to figure out what they want to eat because of the confusing menu name, I'm kind of for this.
I also think...
Don't they give you menus while you're standing in line?
Some places do. I don't know if this one did.
I think they did.
Remember.
Oh, they should have.
Well,
if they didn't. And if they didn't, that would have been
Easy
an easier
fix.
solution.
Yeah.
I also think that in the grand scheme of things, this is a very minor issue.
It is, but
No,
you're
it's leading
right.
to
It
the
does
decline.
I don't know. I feel very strongly about them changing things like this. Like, I don't think that this is a good, not like I don't think it's a good move, because I kind of get it. Like Brian said, like, there are points that I can understand this from, but for me personally, like I said, I think Disney just needed to be all in on this. And this is them saying, well, we were, but, and I didn't want that, but.
I mean, we love Disney for their attention to detail. Like, if I just wanted to order chicken strips, I can go to Six Flags.
That's true too. Like, the one thing I will say about all this is that I think they kept the menu, which is fine. Like, you know, we've seen Disney change the menu on stuff before where it's like, it kind of contradicts the original point of what they were doing. Like when they first changed the Skipper Canteen menu and it was less adventurous than it was before. Like, that's the kind of thing I would be a little more up in arms about, rather than just the names being changed.
I just feel like it's encouraging laziness and lack of innovation. And I don't like that. Like, lack of creativity, rather.
Yeah.
Of Imagineering, you might say.
It's yes. It's encouraging people to feel entitled to, like, oh, well, this is too much work for me to figure out what these things are, so you should change it. Which makes me feel like they're not going to try to do stuff like that in the future.
I kind of wonder what led to this. Like, was there a survey that went out that they asked people about the food options in Galaxy's Edge and they got a mixed response because people just didn't understand what they were ordering? Or if they had an influx of guest complaints that were like, I ordered this and I thought it had that in it, but it really had this in it. Like, I always try to think like there's a reason for this, but I right now I just can't really find that reason.
You would think that Star Wars nerds would be all about this kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So next thing on our news topics here is that the minivan service has expanded. We've talked about the fact that you could get a minivan to or from the airport with Disney hotels. They're now making it available for additional Disney Springs hotels and the Flamingo Crossings hotels as well. This is cool. I think it's nice that they're expanding upon the different ways to communicate, not communicate, the different ways you can get to the resorts and, you know, around inside. I think it's good. It'll take a little bit of that stress off of some of the other transportation methods. Yeah, hopefully this will help the minivans have a little bit more volume.
This is the kind of incentive for wealthier people that I can get behind. I mean, it doesn't take anything away from any typical guest. It doesn't give them any unfair access to an attraction, entertainment, etc. You can't buy your way into something, you know, special, but it's still just like a nice offering if you have the money and you're willing to spend it that you can take advantage of. Like, this is what the kind of thing that I think they should be offering to, you know, to that level of clientele. Not like, oh, for $50 a day per person, you can have extra fast passes more than like the plebes get.
Yeah.
Like
See-
my dad would completely pay for this 100%. If we were staying on property in January and I told him about this, he would be like, sign me up.
And that's a good thing. Like the nice thing about this, and I think I said this before, when we were down there in March, I pulled up both the minivans, I pulled up Uber, and I pulled up the like just regular Lyft, because minivans operate through the Lyft app, or they did. I don't know if they still do. And it was actually cheaper to do just a regular Lyft service or an Uber through Disney. And that's fine. Like, if you can't afford the minivan, the option's there to do something else that's not connected to Disney. The fact that Disney didn't put like an embargo on regular Ubers or Lyft in that area is great. That shows that, you know, they're not trying to price people out. I went back on my Twitter feed to find the pricing. Regular Lyft for 4 people would be $10.27 to get from it looks like Magic Kingdom to Hollywood Studios, and to get from Magic Kingdom to Hollywood Studios on a minivan, which seats 6 people, is $32.69. So
Jeez.
like there's a difference, and I'm sure that there's some kind of amenities in the minivan service that regular Lyft doesn't have, and they're driven by cast members, so there's a little bit more security there. But like there's options. Like you said, it's not taking anything away, and I like that. So next thing on our list is that we got a trailer for the upcoming Disney Plus series, the Imagineering story, which is going to be the behind the scenes look at Imagineering. Yeah, it looks like it's going to be a launch day title coming November 12th to Disney Plus.
This is by far like the thing that I'm most excited about, that is the Disney Plus original content.
Yeah.
I'm a lot more excited about this than the like one day at Disney, whatever, about being a cast member thing.
Yeah,
That
for sure.
Kind of annoyed me, and I feel like people love it here. We definitely pay them enough, but like this is cool.
It's funny because we were talking about this before we started recording, and I was like so excited for the original content that's coming to Disney Plus, and The Mandalorian was like as soon as it launches, I'm going to watch that first episode, because a lot of the stuff that they're doing is going to be like basically televised, where you get one episode per week. But I think this may actually be my day one watch. I think this is going to be the thing that I sit down and watch first.
Definitely for me.
Probably me too. Have y'all signed up for it yet, or are y'all waiting?
I did. I signed up. I was going to do the 3-year plan that they put out for D23 members, and then they put it out for everybody. But when they announced the month-to-month thing, I was like, you know what? I don't want them to take $100 and some out of my bank account right away.
Yeah, I haven't
I
signed up
did.
either, but
I assume the price is going to probably go up, so I was just like, I'm just going to lock it in.
Yeah, I think that's what a lot of people did, was like, as soon as they got that, you know, the launch window and everybody could sign up for it, I think a lot of people signed up because it's like $6.99 is really low.
mm-hmm.
I have
With
Hulu
the
with
the
ads,
deal that they
so
did, it was even less. But
I don't know how it's gonna work with me, and I've been too lazy to actually Google it. So
the
Well-
bundle does not include the no ad version.
Yeah, that's from my understanding. The bundle is going to be, there's Disney Plus, and then the ad version, like the not ad free version, is going to be a bundle, and then there's going to be a bundle with Disney Plus, Hulu, and ESPN, whatever that bundle is that nobody cares about, and then you can get it as a standalone service.
Which is what I was waiting on too, because I also have Hulu with no ads, and when I read that the was not going to be an option with the no ads and the Disney Plus bundle, I was like, all right, fine, I'll just go ahead and sign up.
I don't want the ads. So
As a bit of an aside, I don't know if any of y'all watch like stream ESPN very often, but I do at least weekly, and their streaming service has been absolutely terrible for at least the last 5 years. So I'm hoping that this will kind of kick them into shape and get them to fix a lot of the issues they have.
I
Yeah.
I did a free trial of it because the only sport that I actively watch is hockey. And if I'm like out somewhere, I can like pop on the stream of a game or something if like I want to catch a score or catch the scores or something. And
So clear. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, funny enough, the NHL app has better streams than the ESPN streaming service did. So
It's crazy. There used to be, I'm big into college football, and there used to be a subreddit that was dedicated to providing, let's call them gray market streams for live football games. And it was always crazy to me because I had a login to stream ESPN, and I would try every week to watch the game through like legally the correct way through the ESPN streaming app. And it was so horrible that I would eventually always go back and just watch it on these slightly less than legal streams, I guess. And the quality was 10 times better. So it's like, if you would make your stuff work, people will do it the right way and watch it, but they didn't. So I'm really hoping they fix it this time around.
yeah. What were you going to say, Kirsten?
Oh, I was just gonna say, it's so weird, and you're clearly the only Yankee because you said that you only follow hockey, and all three of us are from the fall. And like, I mean, I don't really care about football, but I watch it every weekend, and I sure know who won and who lost.
Yeah. I mean, I cannot get into most other sports.
Which bad South Carolina, that was crazy last week.
It was a big win.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, thank y'all for taking care
I
of that.
care
That
about
was
sports. Yeah.
nice.
Here when we win, I'm good when we win, but I don't like watching it. It just gives me anxiety. So,
I guess you guys are going to make me start caring about sports now.
Oh yeah, no, I don't care.
Okay. All right. At least I'm not alone here.
Yeah, no, I like tailgating. That's about as far as my sports goes.
Oh. All right. So before we dive into our topic, which we've kind of spent a really long time on the news, so I'm going to quickly, briefly go through some of this housekeeping stuff that we've got here. This has always kind of been a weird thing for me to approach, so this is going to be a little bit hard. We have tried to keep the show as ad-free as possible. I don't want to bring on sponsors for this show because I feel like ad breaks take a little bit away from the podcast. So we wanted to launch a Patreon, which is kind of a sponsorship, but it's more of a listener sponsorship. We're putting up some bonus content on the Patreon website where you can kind of get a little bit more out of the show. We're not going to lock anything away behind a paywall because that's another thing that I swore that we would never do. Some of the incentives are going to include some outtakes and bloopers, full unedited episodes. So you'll get us with like full rants and stuff that I usually cut out, and a lot of the dead air, which you'll find we do have a lot of that. Some look at some of our show notes. Beth is the spreadsheet queen, which I'm sure everyone is aware of because we posted some of her spreadsheets before where you've got some of them. But yeah, feel free to check out our Patreon. It's patreon.com/ and I just realized that I spelled station wrong in the URL. I'm going to try to fix that.
oh God.
Oh no.
It's patreon.com / hang on one second.
Oh, man.
Patreon.com.
Example of an outtake.
Yeah, we
here
did
we
a
go.
great job launching this.
Oh, yeah, this is like the story of my life when it comes to launching stuff like this. But when this goes up, it should be patreon.com / station71 podcast. Like I said, lots of bonus content on there. First tier starts at $2, which it's $2 a month. If you don't know anything about Patreon, it's a monthly billing service kind of thing where you can support us, get all the content you want out of it. It's great. I think it's going to be awesome, and I'm really excited to put some of this extra content out. So wrapping that up, the other thing I wanted to plug really quick, because I've noticed we haven't had a lot of this in a while. I changed the way we did our outro, and ever since that, we haven't gotten a lot of emails. So I wanted to plug our email really quick. If you want to send us any topic suggestions or anything you want us to talk about, it's station71podcast@gmail.com. We always respond. We usually try to put that at the top of our queue for like things to talk about. So send us emails. We love interacting with you guys. And the last thing on our housekeeping here is the 100 episode giveaway. So if you listened last week or the week before that, you know we hit 100 episodes, and I'm giving away 3 Haunted Mansion pop vinyl keychains. All you have to do is share a post on social media letting us know about your favorite Station 71 episode. Make sure you tag us in it, and if it's Facebook, you might have to send us a screenshot of the email because I've found that that's one we don't get notified for. So best practice is just sending us a screenshot of your post via email. And if you want a second entry, you can also leave us a review on iTunes, send us an email of that as well, and I'll throw you in on the list. We've had a couple people enter, but I want to make this like as well known as possible on our show so everybody's got a shot at these little keychain things. So all of that said, does anybody have anything else in housekeeping that you want to talk about before I turn this over to Beth? Okay, so I'm going to pass this one off to Beth, and you can introduce this however you want because I have no good words for this.
Well, I'm not sure I'll have any good words for it either. It's a rather macabre topic. But I thought
It's perfect for spooky season.
Yes, very perfect for spooky season.
It is perfect for spooky season. We thought it would be interesting to discuss the deaths that have happened at Walt Disney World, maybe highlight a couple of weird or interesting ones, and go over some cool, maybe unsettling statistics for you guys. Find out which park you're most likely to die in. I don't know. We'll find out.
The worst part about this is this has been a topic that's been on our list since like the very beginning, and we've just kind of continuously said, oh yeah, we'll do that, and we never do it. So this is going to be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, it's a hard topic to cover because you want to be sensitive about it, but you also kind of, I don't know, I feel like it's really fascinating. And I feel like when I first brought the idea up to you guys and told you guys about the spreadsheet I had, because I've had this spreadsheet for a while, even before we started talking about it as a topic, just because I am, like it has been mentioned before, the spreadsheet queen. I'm really nerdy about certain statistics. So I was like, I want to find out, like, what park I'm most likely to die in and how many, like, what's the most quote unquote dangerous attraction or whatever. So I started putting together this spreadsheet of all the deaths that have happened on Disney property. And I feel like when I first told you guys that, you're like, oh, it's really weird. Why would you do that? And then you started looking at the spreadsheet and you're like, okay, this is kind of interesting, like a little bit fascinating.
Before we start this, I want to ask you guys a question. Has anybody looked like at this whole spreadsheet? Because I know Beth said that. Okay.
And that's what I was going to say when you said you had a spreadsheet. Like, I like spreadsheets. And so I was like thinking, oh, a list of, all the parks and like people that died in them. But it's like way more in depth than I was expecting. Like, I love this kind of stuff, but I was not expecting like the level of detail that
just like the category of death breakdown,
yes,
like column. It's just, this is awesome.
Yeah. So for anybody listening, this is like this is not just like some like quick separate all the deaths by park and year or whatever. It's like way.
Yeah, it's not a list of deaths. This is much more in depth.
So I'm assuming, because I really haven't looked at this whole sheet. Beth, you said there's a key on how many, like what the most dangerous park is, right?
Yeah, so I'll kind of go over, I guess, the categories and stuff like that, so we can establish, because there's different classifications, like you guys said. It's a little bit more in depth than it sounds, and just as a little plug, this is one of the spreadsheets you'll get to view if you're a patron.
But before you do that, I want to ask, because I didn't look at this sheet, but when you said that, I wanted to know if anybody else has seen this. And if you haven't, can we take bets on who thinks what park is the most dangerous?
I haven't either.
Yeah, I haven't looked at it that closely.
Okay. Does anybody want to throw out any guesses? Because
I mean, I would have to guess Magic Kingdom just for sheer, it being open the longest and number of guests that come in it.
That was going to be my guess.
Yeah, I agree. So that's pretty lame, huh? We all have the same guess.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's interesting because I actually don't know off the top of my head, because a lot of the stuff I have in here is formulas. So when I add something, it changes. like everything else. So it'll be a fun surprise for all of us at the end.
Oh, so what's your guess, Beth? Do you think Magic Kingdom too?
I mean, yeah, I would guess Magic Kingdom again, just because it's been open the longest and has the most attractions.
Okay.
I feel like we could just have a whole conversation about Excel formulas, me and you, because I love them. It's my favorite thing to do at work.
Me too. Yes, I spent a lot of time at work on this particular spreadsheet. Not in a job that I was supposed to be doing this type of spreadsheet, but I kind of chalked it up to honing my skills. I was
like
on the clock because I was
There you go.
exactly. I was practicing to make other spreadsheets for them. But anyways, to get us all started off here, I have it categorized into 4 different, I guess, types of death. So we have park negligence, which kind of obvious by the name. It's something that is negligence on part of the park, either by the ride operator, maintenance issues, safety issues, that kind of thing. And we have guest negligence, which is negligence on the part of the guests, so unbuckling their seatbelt, like not following safety instructions, etc. H is for health issues. I have a little key for each one. That's obvious as well. And then act of God is considered just kind of a generic accident, that it wasn't really a direct result as for anyone's part. It just was kind of a thing that happened as unfortunate circumstance. And then I also have it categorized into the different areas of the parks: Magic Kingdom, Epcot, Hollywood Studios, Animal Kingdom, couple at Blizzard Beach and Typhoon Lagoon, believe it or not. And then general resort is something that's not actually inside of a park, but just happened on property. Then I also have it broken down into whether it was a guest or a cast member, and different years and different age groups. So, let me...
So does anybody have any guesses on like which category is going to be the highest?
Definitely think older people, just because like that's when more health issues will take you out, you know? So I feel like you're way more likely to have a heart attack on Mission Space if you're 60 as opposed to 12.
My guess is either that or guest negligence because people are stupid.
Yeah, that too.
So, did you guys have a chance to read through any of these? Are there any ones in particular that you wanted to talk about? Or should we just kind of...
I scrolled through some of it, but I think if you have any that you want to talk about, feel free, and I will chime in if I find one that I remembered I liked.
Okay.
I
That sounded very morbid. I'm so sorry.
No, that's okay.
I've read about everything that's like on Wikipedia. Like the one that is, I think, one of the most... I guess because it's one of the more gruesome ones is in Disneyland, the employee who died on, what was it, America Sings? Is that
America
what it was?
Sings.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah, Debbie Stone. She, for anyone listening that doesn't know, again, this is Disneyland, not Disney World, but it was a Carousel of Progress type attraction, and before they had safety, like breakaway walls installed, she actually got crushed in between while the theater was rotating. So I feel like that was probably the first big Disney associated death. Of course, I think it happened before Disney World was even open, so.
You know, what I find very shocking, and this is going to sound horrible, but the first death that you have listed on here is 1977, which means that Disney World operated for a solid 6 years without an incident.
Right?
Mhm.
Isn't that interesting? And I want to go on record and say that this may not be like 100% comprehensive list, but this is the product of years and hours of research. So I feel like it's probably the most comprehensive list that exists, at least.
Yeah.
So, you know, there may be one here or there that wasn't very publicized that I missed or something, but I think it's pretty complete for the most part.
There are a lot at River Country. Just looking at this first shot that you see of the screenshot, there's
Yeah.
what, 4? One, two.
It's kind of the
it's
action
water,
park
you know.
of Disney World, I guess.
So take us through this sheet, Beth. Tell us about some of these interesting ones. I guess start from the top and then work your way down to some other ones, or however you want to do it. This is your show.
Oh gosh.
How's it feel being in the hot seat?
I don't know.
Life, everything you've done has brought you to this moment.
Right. This is my life's work here. Well, I guess I could start us off with the first one. Like you said, it's in 1977, so Magic Kingdom had been open for 6 years, almost a full 6 years before the first death on property. I think it's interesting that the situation was that a 4-year-old boy drowned in the moat surrounding Cinderella Castle after the family had put him or allowed him to climb over the fence to play. So they sued Disney and got $4 million apparently, and then after the jury found out that they were liable, they reduced it to $2 million. I think it's really unfortunate that obviously all of these deaths are really unfortunate, but the fact that the family allowed the kid to go over there is just really heartbreaking to me.
Yes.
So then next we have in 1980. So, oh wow, another 3 years in between. This number gets a little closer together as years go on, I believe. The famous River Country brain-eating amoeba that everyone always talks about was actually the cause of this 11-year-old boy's death. So I know that we had an episode on River Country, so it's interesting that that's one of the theories that's why it got closed, was because of the amoeba and stuff.
It's actually in most freshwater lakes. Did y'all know that? Like, it's very common. It's just really hard to actually get it in your brain.
Yeah, so basically, I actually, funny enough, did a decent amount of research on this because I went to the lake a few summers ago and was tubing, like hanging onto a tube on the back of a boat, and flipped over and like snorted a bunch of water up my nose, and then got like a crazy sinus infection and was diagnosing myself on WebMD and convinced myself that I had a brain-eating amoeba, and I was like, oh my god, I'm only going to live for like 6 more days. So that's pretty much the way that you get it, though, is it has to be the right conditions. So it's usually like warm, fresh water, and you have to like snort it up your nose hard enough to where it gets to your brain, basically. So it's a lot more rare, I think, than people will lead you to believe. It's just so publicized when it happens. I feel like it causes like a mass craze, like scare about it.
Yeah, and like you said, it was perfect conditions for this kind of thing. So for something like this to happen is probably like 1 in a million chance. And of course, it happened. Isn't there like there's a couple times that happened on here, right?
I don't know. I thought that was the only incidents.
Now, maybe I'm getting my like fan theories of River Country closing confused with this.
But also,
well, I was just gonna say like the 1 in a million chance of this happening, and like it's Disney, so obviously it's gonna just blow up.
Yeah, for sure.
When you said that they went a whole nother 3 years before a death, what'd be interesting is if you could get the statistics on like the visitors per year and see like how much the death rate increased as the visitor count increased.
Huh.
That would be interesting. Does Disney release that in an official capacity?
Disney does not, but there is a site.
Estimate.
It's
I know.
hang on
I
one
would
second.
imagine there's at least a pretty good estimate because I had to look that up when I was doing the Space Mountain History one, and I know they had a pretty comprehensive one for Disneyland.
Yeah, so Disney doesn't actually release the numbers, but the closest you can get is the Themed Entertainment Association. They release yearly numbers that give you like percent on increase and like statistics. I think they have archives of the years in the past, but you might have to sign up for it. But I think that is the most accurate estimate of yearly guest capacity.
Yeah, I'll have to take some time and add that to the sheet. That would be really interesting to know.
I'll link you to their website, and I don't know if that stuff's on there, but that's where I got when we talked about the year-end statistics for like all of theme parks and did like their increases that one time. This is where I got it from.
Cool. So I'm not going to go through each and every single death. A lot of these are pre-existing conditions or, kind of, like I said, act of God situations where it's just kind of an unfortunate circumstance. But one that stood out to me that I thought was really interesting that I have wanted to do more research on, but it happened so long ago that it's kind of limited as far as to how much was documented. But in November of 1984, a husband, wife, and their 1-year-old daughter were killed and two other children were injured when a single-engine plane they were flying crashed while attempting an emergency landing in the Epcot parking lot.
That's crazy.
I just feel like there's more to that situation that wasn't documented. Like, how did that happen,
That is...
Like, I would feel...
Wow.
I don't know when, like, what time of the day it happened, but I would imagine that... I mean, every time I go to Epcot now, the parking lot's packed. It's like, was it not back then and there was actually enough room to try to land a plane? It seems like there'd be a lot of, like, open highway and stuff around Disney that might be a better place to try to put it down.
Yeah, that is kind of weird.
One of the interesting things about Beth's spreadsheet is that she's linked a lot of her sources for some of this stuff. And this one actually has an article. I don't know if you guys have pulled it up, but the first paragraph of it is a rented plane flying a South Carolina family of 5 to a Thanksgiving vacation crashed Wednesday in a parking lot at Walt Disney World, killing 3 people and injuring 2 small children. Witnesses said the single-engine plane hit a light pole in the parking lot at Disney's Epcot Center and skimmed across a dozen unoccupied vehicles before coming to rest on top of a car.
Can you back up?
How crazy would that be? You get back from your day at Disney World and there's a plane on your car.
Oh, just wait, because the next line of like the next quote on here is great. It says it looked like he was trying to land and he had a lot of trouble with it.
Terrible.
It said an eyewitness. It looked like he went up to miss the monorail beam and then I lost sight of him. That is
I'm sorry, you
terrifying.
said this was a rented plane? You can rent planes?
Yep. The first line is a rented plane flying a South Carolina family of 5 to a Thanksgiving vacation.
Oh, okay.
Like if you have your pilot's license and you can't afford a plane?
That's news to me. Okay.
Well, I mean, I guess that's why we don't have our pilot license.
I guess not.
Yeah, so it said that it crashed shortly before 12:30 p.m.
Wow, so you would think that would be like peak parking lot filled time?
Yeah, man. Can you imagine how much worse this could have been?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
That's
in
insane.
this day and age, can you imagine if a plane landed in the parking lot at Epcot? It doesn't matter really what time of day it is. It's going to hit somebody.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Yeah. That's true. This is like...
I feel like the parking lots in the middle of the day are pretty like dead.
No, I feel like people will like be coming in and out regardless of what time it is. Like, yeah, it's not going to be as busy, but people going to take their like midday break and stuff.
I feel like you could probably avoid it, right? Like definitely you would see it in time to run away or something, right?
I mean, it depends on the speed of the plane and where it's coming from.
That's true.
But yeah, that's definitely like an act of God situation, and it seems like there's a lot more to that.
Yeah. So another interesting act of God at Epcot is 2 years later, a 33-year-old man and woman were found in a retention pond after they drove their car down an embankment and into water during a heavy rainstorm. It says it was 6 feet deep. Wow. Some of these I forgot about, so this is still
sad.
like fascinating to me. Man, Epcot parking lot is super haunted. Let me know if you guys are scrolling along and you see one you want to talk about. I'm just
I
trying
have
to pick
found
through.
one that I don't know
Oh,
if you
no.
were trying to go in order, but I have one that is like it's nightmare fuel to me. That
Oh
would
no,
be
go for it.
I'll let you read it, but number 20 on your list right here.
On February 14th, 1999, a 65-year-old part-time custodian was killed when he fell off a gondola. He's cleaning the Fantasyland Skyway Station platform when the ride was accidentally turned on by employees unaware he was there. He was in the path of the ride vehicles and grabbed a passing gondola in an attempt to save himself, lost his grip, fell 40 feet, and landed in a flower bed near the Dumbo ride.
Yeah, that.
Wow.
I've heard about that one. Have you all
I
before?
had...
Because there was some like rumor that that's why they got rid of like the Skyway
Yeah.
stations and stuff. But
Yeah, I had heard of this one because I made the spreadsheet, but I forgot about it until just now. And man, what an awkward time for this to be brought up. When the gondolas were just having those issues, you know?
Yeah.
Whoops. Now everybody listening is like, all right, well, I'm not riding them now. Now, keep in mind that the Skyway was open air, correct?
I believe so. They were
Yes.
sky buckets.
They were. Well,
Yeah,
they
it
had
was-
the
it-
like bars going across, but it wasn't as fully enclosed as the new ones are.
Oh my gosh, this one is my nightmare fuel. November 1992, a 24-year-old off-duty cast member was startled by swarming wasps and fell 11 stories to his death at the Contemporary.
would definitely be me.
So, you know, what's crazy about that is not that this is a Universal podcast, but did you guys see the whole thing about Hagrid's?
No.
Oh,
So apparently this ride has been doomed from the get-go, because if you guys have followed any Universal news, apparently day one, it had like all day lines. Like the line was so packed that people were waiting in line most of the day to get on it. And it had constant breakdowns and like there were so many issues with it. Well, recently news broke out that Hagrid's had to close yet again because I can't even say this without laughing. A swarm of wasps had taken over a section of the track.
Oh, wow.
It wasn't like one wasp's nest. It was like, I'll have to find a picture of it because it's just unbelievable that it got this bad.
Oh God.
I hate that.
That is like honestly a huge fear of mine because I'm allergic to wasps. And so like,
Oh no.
for example, when you're waiting at the top of Expedition Everest, like sometimes you'll see them flying around and you're like totally trapped, right?
Right.
And so I'm like, oh my God, please let us go. Please let us go. Please let us go. Because I just can't, like, I'm so afraid that I'm going to get stung while I'm trapped on a
Oh my
ride.
gosh, that would be awful.
Nobody's ever died from that. Like somebody who's super allergic. I'm not anaphylactic level yet, but you know.
These were just the first search result pictures that I found. Wow, they're super tiny.
What? Those are all wasps?
Those
I
are
would-
all wasps.
I would be crying my head off. Like, no.
Oh my god, that is horrifying.
Yeah.
I hate wasps. They're like really mean bees. It's like at least bees have a purpose.
I know because I'm always the one that gets stung. And like I've been stung, I don't know, 4 or 5 times. And I feel like it's always only me. And they know that I'm scared of them and they can tell. And so they tell all their friends.
I think that's reaching just a little bit.
No, it's definitely not. There's a wasp network and they're out to get me.
I don't doubt it. Wasps are mean.
So coming back to your spreadsheet here for a second, I don't know if I went too far down this list, but number 18, so column 27 on your list. I feel like that one was pretty easily searchable if you look for Disney deaths. I don't know if you want to read that or not.
Yeah, so in 1992, a 37-year-old man entered Epcot after park closing with a shotgun and aimed it at 3 security guards demanding to see his ex-girlfriend, who was a cast member at the park. He fired 4 blasts and took 2 of the guards hostage in a restroom near Journey into Imagination. Orlando deputies surrounded the area and the hostages were released. He emerged from the restroom and, after exchanging words with deputies, put the gun to his head and fired. So this is, I mean, I was just going to say, this is like extra scary because it's like, this is why we have the metal detectors, but this was after park closing. So like they wouldn't have been, their security wouldn't have been like using the metal detectors or probably even really, I mean, maybe the security's gone up more since then, but like, I don't know. Scary. Mental health, y'all, is real important.
Yeah, and I feel like this was really widely talked about, like, over the last couple of years with the metal detectors installed at checkpoints. Like, I remember this coming back up, and I was like, I'd never heard that this was even a thing.
I'd heard of it. I think when I was working there is the first time I heard of it.
And also the one under that is the 4-year-old girl that died on Body Wars, and I feel like I've heard that one a lot too.
Yeah. So Body Wars was like a simulator kind of?
The closest
like
attraction,
Star Tours.
Yeah, that's the closest you can compare it to is Star Tours, but a little bit more intense. Which,
wow,
I guess it would be kind of similar to like Mission Space then too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and I think, I can't remember if it was Defunct Land that did the episode on it or whatever, but they actually talked about they took part of the video of this attraction out because like I think it was causing people that were seizure prone to have seizures and stuff, and just like there was a bunch of really weird stuff that went on with Body Wars. So it's kind of it's an interesting one to check out.
Yeah.
Yep.
This is definitely evidence that you should listen to the safety warnings if you have a medical condition. Don't ride it. Better safe than sorry, for sure.
Mm-hmm. That's really similar to, when was it? The one on Mission Space, the boy, in 2005. He was 4 also. He died on after riding Mission Space. It was an existing
Undiagnosed,
unknown at the time condition.
That
so
is,
awful.
I remember that one being very widely publicized, and a lot of people were like, I'm not going to ride Mission Space because it killed someone. And it's like, okay.
Yep. I remember that too.
Yes, but also that was an undiagnosed health condition that was the large result of that.
That's like what made me think of last week, like with the Skyliner, is I feel like Mission Space really never got as popular as it could have been because of that incident. And then there was a woman too who died after Mission Space in 2006. I mean, a brain hemorrhage caused by a long-standing and severe high blood pressure. So, it was a health condition. But I feel like, and they definitely did make Mission Space less, because it used to be more intense and there was no green option. And they made it less intense and added the even less intense green option.
Yeah, I didn't remember if it was just me being a kid at the time and getting kind of used to it, or if it really was, because like I remember it really feeling like it was gonna peel your face off when you did the launch, when it first opened up.
Yeah, I remember that too, because that's the first time I ever went to Disney was, I think, in 2004. So right before death happened. It was really new at that time. It had just opened, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm going to jump way down on this list because I just found another one that like is so wild. Number 36 on August 6th, 2009.
That one too. Yeah.
That's like perfect, like right place, right time kind of, well, wrong place, wrong time kind of thing. Yeah. But I guess I can read this one so you're not reading all of them, Beth. A 47-year-old employee playing the role of a pirate in Captain Jack Sparrow's pirate tutorial slipped on a puddle on the stage, hit his head on a wall, and was taken to the Florida hospital in Orlando, where he was found that he had broken vertebra in his neck and several locations on his head that required 55 stitches. That is insane.
It's
then 11 days later is when the performer died because he hit his head at Indiana Jones stunt spectacular.
Huh.
After that, not even 2 weeks later.
Well, it's like you think like the Indiana Jones stunt spectacular, like you can see that happening. Like it's a stunt show. There's like something is bound to eventually happen. But like this one before that with the pirate tutorial thing, it's like, yeah, everything had to happen just wrong for that to happen.
Mm-hmm.
These are weird, man, because like you hear people living through the craziest, like most awful stuff, and then you hear people dying from bumping their head.
I remember this one too. The 52-year-old employee that died while working on Primeval World.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was working there then.
Were you really?
Oh, wow. Was it like widely talked about among cast members?
Oh yeah.
I feel like that was pretty public too, because I remember hearing about that and it just felt so bizarre. Because it's like, I don't know, this one, on March 13th, 2011, a 52-year-old employee sustained head injuries while working on Primeval Whirl and was airlifted to a local hospital where he later died. The ride was undergoing maintenance and was closed to the public at the time of the incident. So, like, one, it was under maintenance, like, it was closed down to the public. I feel like that was a really big thing. And then at the same time, like, someone dying on a ride is always a huge deal, because then it's like, are they going to open it up again? You know, I remember that conversation.
Yeah, because hadn't something else recently happened? Like somebody got hurt on it, or maybe I'm dreaming that. I don't know.
It might have been. I don't see anything else on here about Primeval Whirl, but I feel like it's always the rough rides too that end up with people saying like, "Is it going to open?" Someone just died on there. Like Mission Space and this being the two biggest ones.
And I'll actually talk about this one because I don't know. Okay. So I am Facebook. Well, I'll read this story first. On April 12th, 2015, a 36-year-old driving instructor was fatally injured after a crash during a run as part of the Richard Petty driving experience. The instructor was riding in the passenger seat when the driver lost control and crashed into a metal guardrail. Florida Highway Patrol investigated and announced that while the decision to run vehicles clockwise instead of counterclockwise, as the track was designed for, may have been a factor in the incident, it was an accident and no charges were filed against the driver since it was on private property. So the guy who was driving, who was taking part in the experience, it was actually his birthday. And I know that because I'm Facebook friends with his wife because we applied for professional internships at the same time. And so I was like relatively close to that situation because I remember seeing her post something like, it was, happy birthday and like a picture of him by the car. And then all of a sudden it was just like this awful thing that happened. And it terrible. Like I know that he was like obviously messed up for a long time. And he still posts about it every year from what I can tell, because it was just a freak thing. So if you look at those tracks, like when they run counterclockwise, the guardrail is going the right direction, but if you run clockwise, then the end of the guardrail is kind of facing like to where you could hit it head on. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what happened basically, is he lost control and that guardrail, they just ran into it. I mean, it was just one of those things that just happens, and like he died, and it was so sad, and like he had a wife and a small child, and it was awful. Like I was kind of just glued to the news about it and like watching the girl's Facebook page for a long time.
I definitely remember this being a pretty big news story when it happened too, and then they closed this down right after that, didn't they?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they did.
I think they were planning on it anyway because they were expanding the parking lot, but I think that they did it earlier than they had planned after this.
Well, something like that definitely doesn't help.
No.
Yeah. Well, and those Richard Petty experiences are everywhere, and they're, from what I read, like a lot of them are not making much money anyway, so they've kind of been shutting down ones in different areas. But I definitely think that was a factor, and they were like, okay, let's just get rid of it now. Yeah, that's my story. I
Wow.
hope she doesn't listen. I'm not trying to be like,
Yeah, no, I mean, that's just really sad and unfortunate, as all of these are, of course, but
it's crazy because like you never expect to be like close to a situation like that, right?
Yeah, you
Uh,
really don't until you are, and then it's like so surreal.
Yeah, surreal is an excellent word for it.
I'm gonna scroll back for a second. And I really don't want to make light of this, but I realized the fact that Beth has these broken down by attractions too. I scroll down the side and I'm like, what's the worst thing that I could potentially die on? And it's a Small Worlds on here. I just want to point that out. That would be the place that I would not want to die.
Mm-hmm.
oh my gosh. Can you imagine having to haunt that?
I think that would be haunting me.
Yeah.
It would actually be really fun to haunt because you would freak out so many people who are like oddly scared of that ride. Like my friend Allie, who's probably listening to this.
I'm not scared of it. I just don't like it.
It's creepy. And like it could totally be like a horror movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Absolutely.
I think that would be an excellent ride to haunt. In fact, when I die, that might be what I do.
Oh gosh. Well, even more reason for me not to ride it then. I'm trying to throw together the attractions and their like tallies so that we can know for sure which one we're most likely
It's
statistically.
like water, like pools. There seems to be like several drownings, you know?
Yeah,
with
pools
water.
at the resorts is a thing. And
Yeah, that and like bodies of water, I can see that being a huge issue because it's something like even if you have lifeguards on duty, it's still like a very large thing to worry about.
yeah.
I feel like people just kind of let their guard down in a place like Disney where it's like, oh, there's lifeguards. It's so safe here. It's Disney, you know? And there's so many people, like kids are not great swimmers. Drowning is really hard to notice if you don't know exactly what you're looking for. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's like the biggest thing to, I guess, kind of take away from this is that like, you know, we all go into Disney and kind of forget that the real world exists, but don't forget that there are dangers there too.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. I also want to point out that this list is only of the actual deaths on property. The list of incidents would be 10 times as long. So while
Oh yeah.
you may not, you know, it may not result in death, you got to be careful regardless because you could get hurt. There are lots of stories of they didn't die, but they got seriously injured or whatever, you know?
Yeah, and I'll say one, I don't remember if I've read about this as an actual death at Disneyland or as just incidents that have happened at Disneyland or Disney World, but one thing that I'm literally terrified of, because I know this has happened on one of them at least once, is Space Mountain, people dropping things and them hitting a different car, like or things falling out and them hitting somebody in the head and another vehicle.
Yep.
Like I'm petrified of that. Every time I ride it, I like have to fight the urge to cover up my head with my hands because I'm so afraid I'm going to get a head injury.
Yeah. I totally agree with you. I wish that, I mean, I don't know how familiar with Universal you guys are, but for instance, the Hulk coaster that they have there, you cannot have anything in your pockets at all.
Mhm.
Like you have to go through a metal detector, and like if they think that you have something in your pockets, they will like make you empty them out and go put them in a locker, which granted the locker is free, so it's like there's no reason not to, but I was there with some friends one time and he's like, "Oh, well my pockets have a zipper, so I'll just, it was not a problem." And he went through the metal detector and had, I don't know, whatever it was, his wallet in his pocket or something. And he's like, "It's zippered." And they're like, "It doesn't matter. Go put it in the locker." And
Yeah.
I feel like maybe that's a little much, but I do kind of wish that Disney did something more so.
Yeah.
And that's the thing too. Like Universal definitely takes precaution for stuff like that. Disney probably doesn't have a need to for most of their rides, but like
Right.
a
But
lot
the
of their
roller coasters, I think it would benefit.
yeah.
And I think they don't do it because then they would have to deal with the issue of things getting stolen. And that I don't think is a good reason to not do it.
Well, I mean, the locker situation, is like, I mean, they have lockers at Cali River Rapids. Aren't they included for like a certain period of time?
I think so.
I mean, at a lot of parks, like at a Six Flags, they don't have lockers that you actually lock your stuff in. You just you walk across to the exit side and they have cubbies and you put your bag in or whatever. Then you get back on the ride and then ride it. And then get off and just get your bag from the cubby. So it's not secure.
Yeah, I've seen
if
that
somebody really wanted to steal.
at Carowinds before. They like the roller coasters, they have that. So I could understand in that sense, but like Universal's, like your locker, you have to put a credit card in and it's free. It's just that's how you know which locker is yours, because then when you come back you put the same, or you scan your ticket actually, I think. And then it opens automatically when you scan your ticket. So you have to have proof, this is my locker. So I don't know.
We're pushing a little over an hour, so I don't know if you want to go over any statistics now or if there's any other ones you want to talk about.
Or are there any that you guys wanted to talk about before we go over statistics?
I think the most nightmare fuel inducing one is this number 55, the one right before that. Other than that, they were...
Oh.
Yeah, that's... Man died from falling into a vat of grease.
Ooh.
That's a rough way to go.
Yeah, man. I remember hearing about that when it happened and just thinking of how horrifying that must have been.
You ever read The Jungle by Upton Sinclair?
Mm-mm.
No.
Well, if that freaks you out, then don't read that book.
Oh, gosh.
Duly noted.
What was I going to say?
You know what's crazy about some of this stuff? I'm reading some of these, and a lot of these are they feel like they could have come out of a Final Destination movie.
Oh, the gondola guy for sure. That is not to make light of that at all, but that for real, that sounds like you're right, a Final Destination scene.
And the crazy thing about stuff like that is you really don't think that would happen.
Mm-mm. That there's no system in place to sense if there's somebody in the way of it or anything like that.
It's like the Primeval World too. It's basically the same. I mean, very similar situations as far as they were working. Somebody turned the ride on, they got hit.
Mm-hmm. I'm surprised there's not kind of a lockout, tag out type procedure that if anybody goes on there, that they would have to. Yeah.
I mean, I've worked in situations where people are supposed to do lockout tagouts and they were pretty good about it. But, people in those situations, it's so easy to just be lazy that one time, because I'm pretty sure they got OSHA fines for the guy. So that would definitely be.
Oh, they would have to. I mean, that's textbook, open and shut for OSHA.
One other one that I bet y'all heard a lot about, I remember this very vividly, was the one on July 5th, 2009, during a failed track switchover from the Epcot line onto the Magic Kingdom Express line, Monorail Pink, backed into Monorail Purple at the TTC station, killing the 21-year-old pilot, which that's why they stopped doing, kids in the front car.
Yeah,
I feel like we just talked about that last week, too.
Yeah. I mean, I remember that very vividly.
Yeah.
Imagine if that had happened. I mean, because there are always people around, and it's probably, I think it was at night, right? After closing, so I'm sure it was busy. Can you imagine just seeing that happen?
Oh God.
Your vacation, and you see this awful thing.
I think you're right, because I think I remember it happening at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. I can imagine being a guest, having a long day at the park and then seeing that happening. I probably wouldn't be able to process it.
Well, and that's like one of the busiest days. It's one of the busiest times of the year in general, especially for Magic Kingdom. Like, I'm just imagining or scarred by that. I don't know if the guy was a college programmer or not.
I don't know. I mean, you probably know better than I do. Is that not like something you have to have like really special training for to operate the monorail?
I I think that they might not have let people do it after that because transportation was definitely a thing, and I know people used to be able to drive the boats, and I don't know if that's still allowed. But they couldn't drive buses. I know CPs cannot drive buses, but they used to be able to do the boats, and so it was before my time. But I bet I could figure it out. To ask around, maybe we can update on that.
All right, we ready for some statistics?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
All right, so not surprising to anyone, out of the 4 main theme parks, Magic Kingdom is the one that you are most likely to die in, with 13 of 57 total recorded deaths. General park property accounts for 26 of the deaths, so you're actually more likely to die outside of a park on Disney property than inside of one. Isn't that fun? So spend more time in the parks.
It's probably because there's less supervision around too, and a lot less a lot more variable.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like another really interesting thing to me about this spreadsheet is that I feel like it makes you feel comforted in a way that you think about there are millions and millions and millions of people who have been to Walt Disney World since 1971, and only 57 people have died.
And I mean, a
those are
large
really
number of those.
really low odds.
Well,
Right,
it doesn't make me feel comforted. I'm sorry, I'm cutting you off again, Brian.
Good.
Right under that, where you have the locations, the years, the fact that 2004 through 2014 was the highest death number.
Yeah,
That's
that is a little uncomforting.
Well, there's more people now, but I will say, so
True.
this is like unrelated, but this statistics really mean nothing to me anymore because the number of people who have died on Disney property since 1971 is fewer than the number of people ever in history who have been diagnosed with Eli's syndrome.
Wow.
So it's more than
Yeah.
the number of people who have ever been. So to me, I'm like 1 in a million. Well, I mean, it could happen. It's
Yeah.
possible. Those odds seem pretty good to me.
That's a really unique perspective that you have. What were you going to say earlier, Brian?
Oh, it's just, you talk about, there's only 57 recorded deaths. And I mean, maybe being in the parks might have exacerbated some of the issues. But like, if you take out the ones that were health related issues too, like not a whole lot is like actually due to the park itself, Like
That's true.
It's extremely safe if you take those out of the equation too, and think that if they wouldn't have happened, they would have still happened if the person was outside the park.
Right. So just for everybody listening, out of the 57 recorded deaths, 21 of those were health related issues. So that brings it down to 36 without the health problems, which is even smaller.
Can we talk about this myth really fast that you cannot be diagnosed, pronounced dead on Disney property? That is totally not a thing. The reason most people aren't pronounced dead on property is typically a doctor has to pronounce someone dead. So usually paramedics get there. They're supposed to do everything they can, even if they're like, yeah, this person's dead. Like they're still supposed to do everything they can and like get the doctor or get the person to a hospital, and then a doctor usually calls it. So that's why it's not very common. It's nothing to do with like not being allowed to pronounce somebody dead on Disney property. That's
That's also the same thing with like outside of Disney too. I mean, if you've ever had anyone rush to the hospital in an ambulance and later to die at the hospital, like that's usually how it's done.
Yeah, like you don't want to keep the person that needs medical attention inside the parks. You want to get them where the medical attention can be provided to them.
That's true too.
Like my husband was a paramedic for years before we got married, and while we were married. And like I don't think there was ever a situation in which somebody was pronounced dead before they got to the hospital, even if it was totally like gruesome. Yeah, this person is.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I have heard that urban legend before. So, a couple more quick interesting statistics before we wrap up. Cast members, you're less likely than a resort guest to die. There are also a lot less of you, so that makes sense too. 44 resort guests of the 44 of the deaths were resort guests, 13 were cast members. The highest likely age groups are 31 through 50. And then after that, 51 up, then 0 to 6. So you 7-year-olds through 30-year-olds, keep doing what you're doing, I guess.
This makes me feel worse about us turning 31 next year.
Oh my god, I know, right?
Not only is your youth trickling away, but you're more likely to die at Disney.
Well, I still got almost 2 years till I turn 31, so I'm safe for a little bit longer.
Oh, lucky for you.
All right, and let's wrap it up with the attractions. So, funny enough, no one has ever died on Haunted Mansion, which is another good reason for it to be my favorite. Even when people have died on things like Mario said, Small World, or Prince Charming Regal Carousel.
Think that like the first time somebody dies on Haunted Mansion, the ride will end because they will have their 1,000th ghost.
Oh my gosh!
It'll just vanish into nothingness because its purpose will have been fulfilled.
The worst part of that is, I was just about to say, like, it doesn't take a lot for Haunted Mansion to stop, so people will probably get stuck on Haunted Mansion for like 6 hours if that ever happens.
That is true. I will say also, it's pretty common. I mean, not common, but more common than you would think for people to bring their loved ones' ashes. And Haunted Mansion is definitely the most popular ride that people try to leave those ashes. Just you wanted that fun fact.
I have heard that, and that is, I don't know how I feel about that.
I mean, I really don't blame someone for wanting their ashes spread at Haunted Mansion. I don't think I would try and put someone through that, but it makes sense.
Well, I've also heard that if you do that and they catch you, you get banned for life. So that's a good reason to not try it.
You just have to get somebody who doesn't care about being banned. Just leave it in your will.
Well,
Here's enough money for a park ticket so you can go spread my ashes. All right. And we have a 3-way tie for the attractions you're most likely to die on.
All right, but
Well,
statistically speaking, I'm still afraid that the one that is
statistically
listed as the number one here.
Yeah.
Because, yes, the 2 and 3 river country and resort pools, that encompass a lot of different areas. So, realistically, the attraction you're most likely to die on is Space Mountain, and I rest my case.
Your case?
I hate Space Mountain, and now everyone knows one of the reasons why.
Yeah, I don't blame you for that.
It's interesting though because River Country closed so long ago, and it's still tied for the top spot. You know, imagine if it was still open.
And I also want to throw in here, in defense of my pools not counting, there are 28 resorts on Disney property. That's not accounting for the resorts that have multiple pools. So technically, if you're going by resorts, breaking it down, there's like a really, really, really slim chance that you're going to die at a pool.
This is true. Very true.
So Space Mountain is the most dangerous attraction on Disney property. There you go.
Yep. There we go. So
I'm also curious about the age groups as compared to the location of death. Like the pool deaths, are those all 4 of those kids? You know, like now I'm curious about that too. That's, you need more statistics.
Well, let's see, because we can start from the bottom. 3-year-old child, 13-year-old boy, and
12-year-old and 6-year-old.
Yeah, so they were all younger kids. But that, even then, you can kind of argue the case that, like, that's probably also on the parents, that you should be paying attention to your child.
Oh, for sure. I mean, like, definitely, Disney does a good job keeping lifeguards at the pools, but that should not, you just don't let them run amok everywhere and not, pay attention and look out for their safety.
Yeah, which obviously we don't know the situations for like full details. We weren't there for those, but still, more reason to say, watch your kids at Disney.
Yep.
So
the morals of this episode are: pay attention to safety rules and regulations. Be aware of your health statuses. And
riding it once is not worth it if you die. So
yes, and watch your children vigilantly.
Mental health
Disney
is important.
World. Yes, and mental health is important. Some very important issues came out of this episode.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to wrap it up too, unless anybody has anything that they want to say before we tie up this almost hour and a half long episode.
I just want to say, if anybody out there is listening and wants to know a statistic that I didn't cover, then let me know. Even if it's not related to this particular topic, I'm very into spreadsheets and would happily put one together.
Yeah. And also, if you're interested in the spreadsheet, this is going to be, like we said, a tier on our Patreon that you can subscribe to get the info for all of this stuff. Yeah. Thank you for throwing this together, even though you didn't really throw it together for us. Then that's going to do it for us this week. Thanks for joining us again on another episode of the Station 71 podcast. If you like what you heard, be sure to subscribe to us on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts from. If you want to get in touch with us, you can find us online at facebook.com/Station71pod, Twitter at Station71pod, Instagram at Station71podcast, and you can join our Discord chat at bit.ly/S71chat. And as always, you can send us your listener emails to station71podcast@gmail.com. We hope you enjoyed your ride, and we'll see you real soon.
Please stand clear of the doors. Por favor, manténganse alejado de las puertas.